It's 12 o'clock in Frisco, Texas, and it's time for Smoker Broker Radio with Robert Mesh, a.k.a. the Smoker Broker. Robert is the owner of Small World Realty and has employed hundreds of real estate agents in his 17-year career. He has instructed and mentored over 10,000 real estate agents at the highly acclaimed Champions School of Real Estate and is considered an expert in Texas residential realty. Robert is also an advocate of true entrepreneurial spirit and has helped many to transition from corporate America into the world of self-employment. And now live from the studio to your world, the Smoker Broker.
Hey, welcome to Smoker Broker. I'm Robert Mesh, and I'm the guy they call Smoker Broker. Happy Thursday. Hope everything's going well. Hope your week's going well. Hope everything is going well. Period. Everything is fantastic right now. This is going to be the first show in literally 9 months that we are not going to have an opening about COVID. And that's not to demean what's going on with some people and that it's still not a serious thing. It's just, I think we've said everything that we know what's being affected. We know what's being done. And it's really not a continuing conversation at this point. It's out there. We know it. And I am, for the first time in 9 months, not going to start the show off outside of mentioning it. That's going to be it. We are actually going to get back to what we normally do. And that is talking about real estate and talking about the markets in general and focusing in on the core real estate functions, which is what we do on this particular show. We are streaming live on KBGI Media. We also partner with now Raven Radio. We go across the country. Some people even on the other side of the world sometimes. Every once in a while listens, but we are a live podcast or live broadcast, and it eventually goes podcast. Most of the watches that we have are in archive via podcast, but we always appreciate all those people who are watching, because it does continue to give the show a lot of relevance for a lot of people out there as far as the help that they seek. Want to start and open up with talking about the current market situation for real estate, because it's an interesting one and it depends where you're at. So if you're listening to the show on the East Coast, it could very well be different to what we are experiencing here in the state of Texas. And I've come to notice recently, even in the Texas market, we're a little bit different. So I'm fortunate that I have teams in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Austin, San Antonio, the triangle down there, Austin, San Antonio, and Houston. And some of the markets are similar, like DFW is more similar to Austin right now, but Houston seems to be not as in such a tight of a market as we are in right now. Don't get me wrong, they're all of us are under low inventories right now, but it seems like Houston is not as bad, and San Antonio is getting there. But make no mistake, Austin and Dallas right now, it is tough to find a home in these areas. 20 years doing this, I have never seen the market that tight before. We have, in some areas of the Dallas-Fort Worth area right now, in price points under 400K or 500K even, we're seeing in some instances over 30 to 40 offers on a property. And that's not fun. That's not, you can look at it. I always love when the general public talks about how the real estate market's hot. It's just hot right now, and it's fantastic. And that depends who you ask as far as that being good or not, because the sellers love it because they're getting max value on their house, and they're getting max value on their house right now. And those are the people that talk about the market being high. But I promise you, there's not a buyer right now in Dallas-Fort Worth, and most likely the state of Texas, that is very thrilled with this process right now. Because chances are, if you sell your house right now, you very well could be waiting to get into the next one. And that's not a bad thing. It's just a matter of planning. It's just a matter of what's going on. Now, when I said I wanted to start the show off talking about the markets and stuff, the point I really wanted to hit on is that real estate's very cyclical. Okay, it has its high points and low points. Historically, if you watch real estate, it does this. It just goes up and down, up and down. And right now, we're at the highest point that we can be at, which means that when you get to the highest point, at some point you got to come down. The question becomes, when do you come down? How quick do you come down? Do you crash it? Does it slowly come down? And those are the things that we're watching. One of the things that we're concerned about in the state of Texas right now is we are starting to get eerily close to what kind of happened in Vegas in 2008 and 2009. That's not cool. 2008 we had a huge drop, huge drop in price. In the Vegas area, we're looking at almost a 30 or 40% loss in value in literally a month's time. Now we'll never foresee something like that in Dallas Fort Worth, but we might see something like that because we're peaked. We're at the highest point it can be at, and when you have people who are putting multiple offers in on properties, average we're seeing right now is 5 to 10 multiple offers, and I already said we've seen some at 40 or 50 in certain pockets, the metroplexes in the entire state. It's only a matter of time before you start building up a demand that doesn't have enough supply. And anybody who has any basic business education, when demand's high and supply's low, the price goes up, and you start getting creations of people who get very creative with what they're doing and how far they're willing to go to get a house. And then you start seeing things like, we talked about multiple offers, but what we haven't talked about yet is how high some of those people are going. Historically in Texas, that is, this wouldn't be anybody who's listening on West Coast, East Coast. This doesn't apply to you. It's more Texas based than anything, but historically on a multiple offer, there's one or two, and we train the agents to maybe be 1,000 or 2,000 over. And right now we're having to tell them to be anywhere from 20 to 40K over, and that's just to have a chance. That doesn't mean they're going to get it. 20 to 40K over. And so here's the other thing too, and this is why this show is very helpful to not only real estate agents, but to their clients as well, because this is something that you can help communicate to them and help them understand what it is that we're doing. And this is a good one. So we talk about takeaways from the show. This is probably the first one today. When we are talking about having that type of activity where we advise a buyer that they should be 20 to 40K over, the common sense should dictate that buyer's going to be like, what the hell? Why would you tell me that? Historically, that would be a correct response, because that would be ridiculous for us to tell them something like that. But you have to put other factors in. This is why you should always go through a real estate agent, especially if you're someone in the general public and you just think you know real estate. You don't, and you especially don't know what's going on. I can promise you that right now. There's not anybody in the general public that can figure out how this is going if you're not in our shoes and see what we see day to day. And here's a good conversation. So we have had some clients where we told them they needed to be 30 to 40K over, which is just ludicrous. But is it that ludicrous to tell a client that they need to be 30 to 40K over on a home that they have interest maybe as low as 2% right now? Because we're seeing that. We're seeing some of the 15-year notes right now at 2%. So you think about that. Do the math on per month going 20 to 30K over on a property at 2%. It's not as much as you think. Now, am I advocating it's good to pay 30 or 40K over? No. No one would ever say that it's okay to pay 30. What's that?
$25 a month.
On which one? Which price point?
You're going just 15K over.
15K over. Look at that. That puts it in perspective. And we've mentioned this on the show before, but when you have someone who's looking for a house, and this is the one that dreams of the white picket fences and their kids playing outside, and this is where they want to live, you kind of have to put in perspective, what is our responsibility? Everybody always thinks our responsibility as a real estate agent is to get the best deal. I got news for you. That's not the number one priority. The number one priority is getting the house that someone told us that they wanted, because it's the house of their dreams, or it's where they want to reside for quite some time, or it's where they want to retire. That's our job. Now, the second part of our job is telling them what they need to do to get it. If we have to tell someone to be 30 or 40K over, we're not doing that as a joke.
No.
And we're not thrilled to be telling them that. But if they asked us to get that house and they're using our advice, that's the best advice we can give them right now. Now, we will cautiously tell them the obvious. We will say, hey, you are overpaying for it. If you turn around in 6 months to a year, you try to sell it, and the market comes down, I don't want you looking at me funny when you come in and I tell you that it's worth a little bit less, because you've been told that there's a good chance that you know you're buying at the height of it, and it might come down. Now, luckily in Texas, our appreciation tends to be very our appreciation depreciation tends to be very steady. It's probably not going to be so much in the next year or so, but that alone hopefully keeps it from spiraling down to where you have these types of problems. So we have to give them the advice, but we have to clarify both sides. We have to tell them what could possibly happen if we do this. Good agents explain that, we tell them that good agents do this because it's the right thing to do. But if you're really smart when it comes to real estate and you're disclosing to a buyer that they're overpaying and that it might not be so easy to sell it in a year or so, you're telling them the truth. You're telling them the truth so that you're very transparent, and that they realize that when they do come to ask you to sell a house because they got a divorce they never thought they were going to get,
Yep.
that, hey, look, I tried to tell you, so this shouldn't be a shock. Now, it's not like we want to tell them to take their medicine, but in a way it is.
No, the issue I'm seeing is when people come in at 5% down, and they have to go over, and if the appraisal doesn't hit, they don't have the extra cash to bring.
Right. So look, that's a really good point. And I love real estate, and I love the real estate market. And most of the time when we talk about real estate, it's extremely positive. Like 97% of the time, I would tell you real estate's awesome. But right now, that trend is not a good one, because that's what's happening. You have someone overbidding for a property, 30 to 40K. Obviously, the house, if you go by comps, isn't worth that. And here's another takeaway from the show today. When we do comps, we look at 3 to 6 months back. If an appraiser comes in right now and takes a property from 6 months back, it is not going to be what we are looking at right now, which means it's going to be lower. And if it's going to mean lower, then we are most likely not going to make value. The bank requires that property appraised for the value of the contract, or they're not going to lend the money, or they're not going to lend the money to that amount. What they're going to say is, we're going to lend the amount to what we originally agreed to, and if it came in short, you're going to pay the difference. Well, if that difference is 30 or 40K, there's not a lot of people in America that have 30 or 40K just sitting in their pockets. Most Americans don't have 10K sitting in their pockets. So this presents a problem to what is considered to be the American dream. The American dream has and always will be home ownership. And when you start threatening the sacred bowels of home ownership, you've got a problem. I'll extend this conversation too. It's not just the people who don't have the reserves to outbid or cover for that type of situation. What they're also starting to experience, and I have to tell you, and I rarely do this on a personal level, but I do not like what I'm seeing when it comes to the amount of people who are pocketing investing, that are syndicating to where they're piling up several other people that have money, and they're using that money to push everybody out of the housing market. So what you see now is, on a 300K home, which used to be considered used to and still is a nice home, but now it's being actually used as possible investment, which means if you have an investor comes in, price is 300, they know there's multiple offers, they'll come in at 350, and not only will they come in at 350, they'll come in at 350 with cash. If you're a first-time home buyer looking at an FHA loan with 3.5% down payment, you are like universes and galaxies behind a chance at getting that. And what's happening is those people come in and they're starting to push legitimate people who want the American dream to purchase a home. They do not have the ability to do that right now. And I'm telling you right now, mark my words, there is going to be, in the next year or two, government intervention into those people that are starting to do that.
And they'll screw it up too.
Okay, probably will screw it up. But I'm telling you, and I rarely go, usually when I'm that confident in something, it's because I've seen enough. And we run a large team, so we see a lot of stuff go through. We know what the effects of this are in our little world. Well, if it's happening in our world, it's happening in a lot of other worlds too. And I'm just telling you right now, at some point, somebody's going to have to put a stop to investors coming in. And what I think is going to happen is you're going to see what the government did, the HUD department, when they came through with their own policies, their own process, their own process of selling homes that they used to require in the last 10 years. They got sick of it. See, they had this problem years ago. They also had this problem years ago where too many people, investors, were buying those homes that were meant for first-time home buyers. That's what the HUD department was. Their program. That was the word I was looking for. Program. The HUD program was created so that first-time home buyers could legitimately find a home and with less rigid standards. Well, investors started getting into it because those homes were low dollar and buying up. The government didn't like that because it went against the American dream. And they said, no more of that. Going forward, if you buy it, you have to be an owner occupant and you have to live in that house for a year.
Yep.
It is my opinion that you very well might see that in the traditional market. It is very possible that Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac might come in and say, which, by the way, Fannie and Freddie Mac power almost 80% of the loans that are given in this country. They are probably at some point going to say, we will not lend money to somebody who is not going to live in that house for a year. And then the federal government will also come in, and that goes for anybody paying cash too. We are not going to let someone come in and push everybody else around.
I could see them saying something like, if you are not going to occupy the property, you can't put an offer in until it's been at least 15 days on the MLS.
Which is what HUD did originally.
Yep. And
that way they're telling them that you still have a chance to get it. We're not telling you can't get it.
Yeah.
But you're going to wait in line for the people that want the American dream, the people that line up to get into this country because it is that great, because they don't have that anywhere else. It's only a matter of time before the government says they're not going to let this happen anymore. I might be off. Sometimes I'm off, but believe me, I'll be living it up when it happens in 2 years. I was right about COVID too when it came to what COVID would possibly do to the market. I predicted that in March of last year when it started, that there could very well be a fuel to the housing market, and there could very well be a euphoria type to the population where they get to where things are so horrible. If they get past it, then there's a euphoric way, and I'm going to live the life the way I want to, and that's what happened. We predicted that well before it actually happened, and I'm fairly certain that we're going to see something similar when it comes to that. Okay, so that's the market update. For once, it wasn't a COVID update, which is I'm happy about, and that is very useful information for anybody who's watching especially for the Texas markets, really for across the country. That really is some good stuff for you to pass on to your clients as far as what's happening out there. Today, we are going to we're actually going to interact with scripts. And when it comes to scripts, what we're talking about is when agents are trying to learn how to handle certain situations, we don't want them to learn how to handle those situations when they actually happen, because that's not fun. Nobody's very good on the spot if they haven't rehearsed or they don't know what to say. Now, I have to actually thank my personal office, the office that we're at up here in Dallas-Fort Worth. they were the ones that motivated me today to have this particular show. Yesterday, the new agents on their own, not via leadership, on their own decided that they were going to get together and say, these are the things that we don't understand. So I attended the meeting, and I got to tell you, I was super impressed because everything they mentioned went down on my notes as things that need to be discussed. And one of those did happen to be, we want more script and more role play. And I was like, there's no time better than to do it today, because we haven't done that type of show. Actually, I don't think we've ever done a role play show.
Yeah.
So that's good, because a lot of times we'll go, I almost intentionally go at least 6 months to, if not a year, before I repeat a topic. So whenever time we introduce a new topic, I like that because it just increases. We have a wide storage of items that we can have on the show. It's funny, when we started the show, the owner and producer, who's great and a personal friend of mine, and now one of the better relationships I've had in recent years, that I've met someone that I really respect. When I first started talking with him, he'll talk to you about, so there's we weren't doing so, no, there wasn't as many podcasts 4 or 5 years ago as there is today. Of course, COVID has spewed out people finally getting into podcast and learning the digital side, which is great. That's awesome. But look, what he told me when I started this, and it's still true to this day, you can get on and do podcasts occasionally. You can do 1 or 2, but to have the information to do it every week, for 52 weeks, that's not that easy to do. And fortunately for us, we almost go the entire 52 weeks where we rarely go back on a subject twice. So I love that about this, because that means every episode you watch has something new for you. That means every time you go back and watch something, it's not the same thing. So I really like that. That's why I like the show today. All right, Brent. So as always, y'all should know, got my director of ops on the side, my longtime personal friend too. He does this thing with me day in, day out. He is going to help me with these scripts today. He probably is the one who should do it, because he's the one that does it a lot more than I do these days. But I have done it for 20 years, so I still should know how to run a script. Brent, do me a favor, and let's just read through. Let's do one example, one of the better ones. We actually did this with our crew a few months ago, or a couple months ago. Start with one of them that we can have a conversation on an example, and let's go with it.
Okay. So blank website portal name. So
what's that? I didn't hear you.
Well, I'm supposed to say like website portal name. So we're just going to leave that. Something that sounds like Willow.
Oh.
says that my house is worth more than you are.
Okay.
Who am I supposed to believe?
I got you.
My Westimate is saying that it's worth something.
I got you. Go ahead, and I want you to start this script. So just so y'all know, what we're doing is we're acting like we're talking to a seller that we're trying to get a listing, and they've told us this example.
Yeah,
so
that happens a lot.
It happens all the time.
Yep.
So Brent's going to kind of go through what the response should be to get them off that belief or that concern. Brent, do it one more time. Read the example and tell them.
So it's supposed to be like so-and-so Zillow, whatever algorithm is out there is telling me that my house is worth way more than you are. It's worth $50K more than you. So why should I listen to you when, obviously they say that it's worth $450 and you're telling me it's worth $400.
All right, that's the objection. Now we need to overcome the objection. What should we tell somebody when they tell us that?
Well, the first thing we say is they don't have boots on the ground, right? They don't have eyes on your property. They have no idea what the inside of your house looks like. They have no idea the condition of your house. It's just a formula, and the formula is not advanced enough to be able to determine what we can after, decades in the industry. It can't tell if there's been a divorce. It can't tell if something horrible has happened. It can't tell if the house looks great but smells like 3 dogs died in it. So, I mean, you're more than welcome to try and get what that says, but when it doesn't, I'm ready for you.
So I love the way, there's a reason why Brent is where he's at in his career and what he does, and why he is also a leader in the industry. of knowing and understanding what we do, because he just repeated what I was going to say if he didn't say it word for word. And the most key important part, focus of what he said when it comes to what he was referring to as far as algorithms is an AVM, right? He's looking for a value that's been generated by a computer that is not a real entity or a person, and saying your house, and these are all over the place. You can go to any website these days that says your house is worth this. And it's funny, you have some of the largest companies in the world in real estate now that started that way, and that's where all their money came from. Yet those very companies would tell you they know damn good and well that thing's not accurate.
Well,
I find that interesting.
That CEO of Zillow, when he listed his house, he listed it way under what his estimate was.
Which, by the way, we can say that because that's fact.
That's a news story.
Yeah, it's a true story, and I find it interesting that someone can make billions of dollars off of a system that we know is flawed.
Yep.
And where Brent really hit it, because I constantly say, and it's not just when we're talking about variables, it's also when we're talking about the existence of real estate agents. Real estate agents have always been tried to be replaced for the last 40 years. And every year someone thinks that they finally have come up with the formula to replace a real estate agent. And the bottom line is this, and Brent said it, until there's a day where someone has knowledge that what's going on in your personal home, have you had a job loss? Has there been a death in the family? Are there foreclosure proceedings that are imminent? Is there personal issues in the relationship? Are there issues with the kids that are well beyond the norm and they're causing problems? Until there's something, which there never will be, unless we decide to start letting open cams in our house. I guess you could argue that Alexa's pretty damn close to doing that, but I don't think they'll even let her get away with that type of information. But until the day someone can do that, there is no computer system that can tell you accurately what your house is worth. I'll go even further than that. Even your MLS system. Trying to be careful here, but I don't care. Because I'm uncensored anyways, and it doesn't matter. Regardless, it's my opinion.
It's your opinion.
Those MLSs that have those actually, you know what? I take it back. I'll double down on this. I'm going to give you a good takeaway from the show today, right now.
Are
you back there?
We go. You went dead quiet. I think the MLS boards went in and hacked into your computer and muted
They
you.
probably did. The MLS, when it comes through and they do that computer wizard where they actually, in a really pretty way, they tell you the comps and they show you the comps, and you're even taught this from some of your brokers. Some of your brokers will teach you to utilize this wizard. Well, that wizard, it's a computer, and it doesn't know the same things that we do. In fact, the wizard's not even that good to know that if you're comping houses and here's one subdivision and then there's a street in between, here's the other one, but these are similar size, so the algorithm tells them these two houses are the same size and they were built in the same year, but it fails to say that this is a luxury neighborhood and this one's not.
Yep.
It doesn't know.
Yep.
So you go through, you're a new agent, you were taught in some class how to do this this real pretty CMA that's really professional, and you show your mentor, or God forbid you show your client before talking to your mentor, which is a terrible mistake, and they look at it and they go, what the hell is this house on here for? That has nothing to do with my house. That's the problem with automated computer generated items. So when we're talking about this objection, this particular one where a customer or a potential client tells you, well, X says I'm worth this, you immediately jump in and go, hey, if you think that that's right, that's one of the 1 out of 1,000 reasons that you need to hire me. Because I'm telling you right now, that is not correct. And you should agree with me as soon as I tell you the things that we just talked about. So that's a great objection to that script. Great takeaway, great presentation of it. All right. What's another one?
Let me scroll through here. I probably should have been doing that while you were talking. This is a good one though. So I want to buy my next house before I sell the one that I'm in. but I'm afraid that once I sell, I won't be able to find anything to buy, and there's no listings out there. So I think I should just wait.
All right. Is that happening right now?
Absolutely. I mean, that's very current with what's going on.
It's beyond that. I would tell you that it's probably the greatest example ever in the history of Texas right now. This is what we're experiencing, right?
Yep.
All right. So go through that one, and I'll follow with you. Go through what the objection is when someone tells you that. Now, this one's different. This one here is not us trying to change their opinion. Now it's us giving advice to them on what they should do with this process. And I'm pretty sure I know what Brent's going to say, but when he does, listen to how the advice is not necessarily probably what they want to hear, but what we need to do.
No, I would have said last year, the year before, I would have said, let's go ahead, just put your house on the market. We need to be under contract before you can even put an offer in. So once we get your house on the market, we can start looking and we'll see what's out there. Trust me, plenty of homes are coming out there. You'll find something. But now I can't say that so certainly. So now what I advise is, hey, if you can't afford to qualify for the new house without selling yours, I mean, there's a good chance that you could sell yours and just be waiting. So why don't you sell your house? It's going to suck, but move into an apartment short term until we find something for you. Other options are we maybe have you take out a bridge loan or utilize some of the programs that KW has going. But, to think that you should just wait while prices are skyrocketing, and interest rates are low, I don't know, man. I'd move now rather than later.
Yeah. And so word for word again, he doesn't miss a beat. That's exactly what I would have said. And the focus there and the takeaway, and it's not a good one, is that he said that his advice is, look, you're probably going to be better off if you sell it and you already look for temporary housing, such as an apartment, and know you're probably going to be in there for 6 months to maybe even a year. And it's not just the inconvenience. It's not just the inconvenience that's the problem. Or not the problem. That's good advice. The other side of this is the common sense side of this. If we sell your house at max value, what does that mean you're going to do when you go buy one?
Yep.
So, being a temporary storage doesn't have to be an inconvenient or a bad thing. It could actually be a good business decision because your hope is that you sold high and that you potentially can buy lower. Yep. Now, that doesn't mean in a year you still could be off the hook, but at least you're already having to do it for a convenient standpoint that you're not sitting there looking for a house that's not there. So it kind of relieves the stress on, well, I don't need to rush because I know it's going to take some time to do this. But there's actually a perk in that. By waiting, it might benefit you where you get the best of both worlds. You get to eat your cake and you get to have your cake and eat it too. I mean,
this is the exact opposite of the conversation we had 10 years ago when the market was terrible and people were objecting, saying, I don't want to sell because, values are down. And we had to tell them, look, you're going to sell and you're not going to get as much, but you're also going to pay less on the other side.
Yeah. Like we were talking about when we opened the show, just so you know that everything we do flows for some reason. It's cyclical.
Yep.
Depends on how we look at it. It's perspective. What is the market doing right now?
Mm-hmm.
We have to react to it. And this is why it does matter when you're dealing with an experienced agent that they've seen the cycles. So I've seen, I'm fortunate enough to have seen 3. I've got a couple of partners that I work with that have seen 4, 5, and 6, which dates back to the 70s. Those guys are laughing right now. They know who they are. We have a lot of skill and experience in our particular group that is showered down to the rest of our agents. So even our newer agents who have not seen this experience, they're already trained and they're already told that's what's going to happen, which is why those agents are very competent. I'm not shy about it, and I'm not. You can call this an arrogant comment if you want, but it's not. We do believe that our crew are some of the best trained agents in the country. I got the street cred to make that statement too. My background, I can be the judge of whether they're that strong. And the fact that they go through all of us to make sure that they're right is exactly what I'm talking about. They need to have this type of information with this type of objection. When a new agent goes in, they should know how to object to that. If they don't have any type of leadership, any type of guidance, any type of a decent mentor, they don't know how to address that situation he just mentioned. Okay.
Hey, real quick, do we want to get to our sponsors before we forget?
Please do. Mark he's over there. He's got to get to it. He'll put that up in a second. Why don't you go ahead if you've got the spiel, get our sponsors going.
I've got it. So we have two sponsors today. Number one is Martin Cooley. He is our go-to inspector with BPG Inspections. Martin's the guy that we usually refer. I mean, we refer several out to our clients, but he's the one we feel the most comfortable with because we've just known him for so long. He's been consistent. He's always on time, professional, and he gives color-coded inspection reports. So when you open the inspection report, in the first few pages, you see a color-coded summary. Red is something that you need to pay attention to. Blue is something that's not that big of a deal. So it helps us in the management side of a firm. We can go through it quickly and figure it out. And the other thing is he doesn't scare the clients. He's very careful with the wording he uses. He's not dramatic, so that also helps. So we highly recommend Martin with BPG Inspections. His license number is 5595, and you can reach him at 817-401-3240. You can book him at bpginspections.com. Just search for Martin Cooley, and he is our go-to inspector. Second, our second sponsor is Greg Holdberg with Liberator Health Insurance. With Liberator, it's your health and your choice. Liberator Health Insurance has plans that allow you to see any doctor and go to any hospital in or out of network, and you can save 40 to 60% on your premiums. Their deal of the week, they just had a couple with a new baby for $468 per month. These plans offer the largest PPO provider network in the United States that cover hospitalizations and surgeries, doctor's visits, and no referral needed to see a specialist, chiropractic visits, preventative health screenings, teledoc, x-ray, MRIs, labs, emergency rooms, urgent care, and much more. As an independent broker agency, Liberator works with some of the best insurance carriers in the industry to get you the most coverage at an affordable monthly premium. For more information and to get a quick quote, call or text Greg Holdberg, independent health insurance broker, at 214-886-4688, or visit them at liberatorhealthinsurance.com.
Yeah, both great vendors, both personal friends of ours, which I find to be good when it comes to strong business partners, because it's not just the trust that we have in business, but the trust that we have personally as well. We can vouch for those two especially because we know them on two different levels. So great guys, great people to talk to if you have those concerns. Of course, with us, the inspection is a lot more relevant in the fact that we're doing those day to day, but health insurance comes up all the time, life insurance, group insurance. So it's great that we have Mr. Holberg out there. Okay, what's another objection?
All right, so this is a good one. So I have a friend in the business, and they just got their license, and I think I have to do business with them. They're a really great friend of mine, or I guess you could say family member too.
Yeah,
that's a tricky one. We come across a lot because there's an obligation. And we get it because we were obviously there at one point, right? As agents, we wanted our friends and family to use this, but I mean, it's an important transaction.
So I love this one. I'll do this one first since you had to do the other ones. So every once in a while, you'll hear that someone you're interviewing with someone. They go, "Well, I have one of my friends has been doing this for a long time, so I really feel like I need to go through them." You certainly don't want to demean the friend because they are friends, so that's not a good way to get the listing. Well, that person's an idiot. You don't want to do that. But you do want to state something. This one's a quick objection. But you do want to state something that you might not know. This is a good takeaway from the show as well, because a lot of people don't know this. Or you wouldn't think this way, especially if you're a new agent. When you address that seller, you're like, hey, look, that's great. And I'm sure they're awesome at what they do. In fact, they might be one of the better ones in the area. But just know this. There's a lot of personal information that's exchanged when we do this process. From the lending side of it, from incomes, from debt to debt ratios, to outstanding items, to past items, such as divorce. It's not like we go looking for it, and it's not like a lender just goes out of their way to tell us those things, because that's none of our business until there's a problem. All right? And this is the takeaway. There might be something that seller does not want shared, and they need to know that those things probably come up in this process. And if it's a friend, it might not necessarily be the friend that they wanted to see that type of information. I'm going to give you a really good one. and I don't even think this client knows this. As one of my friends where we're going through the process. I have no concerns with this person. I'm pretty comfortable with their income levels and what they're buying. And it's one of my least stressful deals, right? Well, I get a call from the lender. I guess we're, I don't know, 3 weeks into it. And they're like, hey, we're having some problems on this file. I go, what? I go, well, they go, I don't know how to say it, but it looks like they attempted to divorce 3 years ago. And the way it's in there, it's keeping us from finishing these documents up to account for it properly. Now, I can assure you, that friend and client of mine, they have no idea to this day that I still know that. And I will tell you, to this day, it's still even a shock that was a consideration, that it was that person. And this is as good of an example as you can get that if it's a friend, I hate the hypocrisy of this, right? This is the hardest thing to do as a broker. So we're teaching you right now how to handle when you're trying to get a listing, and the objection is that they have a friend. But this works the other way too. That if you're the friend, we want you to be able to say, well, look, why would you want to go anywhere else? So it's very hypocritical when we teach these subjects. But nonetheless, if we want to show you how to do it right, that is how you treat the objection there. It's completely opposite and hypocritical if it's our buyer, and if it's us and it is our friend and we want to use our friend. But that other one's a tough one, and it can be difficult. I'll give you another example of the of why the objections are good, and there is some truth to it. There have been some friendships that have been ended because of working together, not in just business in general, but especially in real estate. Unfortunately, it's happened to me. It hadn't been many times, but it has happened. Real estate is as personal as it gets. And even your closest friends, you'll see the true colors of someone when they start talking about their finances and their real estate. Because friends that you might trust your kids with probably be sick to your stomach at some of the things they say to you when their house is selling or not selling, or how a deal might go wrong and what they say to you. And that's a very good objection when you're talking to someone going, hey, look, I'm just going to tell you, I'm sure that person's great. And I'm sure, you'd even trust your kids with them. But that doesn't mean you should trust selling your house to them, because we cannot tell you how many friendships have ended when that happens. Mm-hmm. That is a very good objection. I'll give you another personal example. It's happened to me earlier in my career, which I was fortunate because I learned how to handle it very early in my career. I was a good friend. I had given this individual several referrals for their business. I won't say which, because that way they won't know which friend I'm talking about. I gave him several referrals. I was new to the business. So, when you're new, you're starving and you want to make sure you're getting the deals that you need, especially from your close sphere. And come to find out, they list an expensive home that they lived in for like $575, and then they go off and buy almost $1 million home. And I find out after it's all happened. And of course, you do the natural, what the hell? How the hell did that happen? I mean, I've gone out of my way to do this and this and this for you. It was a 20-year friendship, almost back to childhood. And I erased it in a matter of 2 minutes because I did what every new person would do, because they're not advised and they're immature. I laid into them everything I could think of, and telling them nasty, calling them things and whatever. I dug as deep as I could, and I ended it in less than 2 minutes. And the moral of the story is that 10 years after, I saw the individual at an event that a lot of our mutual friends were at. First of all, it's extremely uncomfortable. But this individual came up to me, and they were very polite because it was extremely uncomfortable. And they tell me, they go, look, I want you to know that the reason that was done years ago was that we were having some financial problems. We had money enough to make this process and this transaction work, but there was going to have to be some work done, and we did not want you to see that stuff because it was embarrassing to us. Y'all, it's hard to make me feel like this because I usually don't give a damn. But you want to talk about my top 5 of making me feel like this? That one ranks right up there. I had never in my entire life felt smaller because I did exactly what I thought I needed. And for 10 years, I actually believed every bit of it. And when I heard that, I was like, you are the biggest piece of, because that vindicated that it's not always like it seems. And that's a great reason why when we do these objections, we're warning that person that very well could happen. So I love this one. Because, and a couple of takeaways here. One, we gave you 2 ways to object to that. But 3, and probably the bigger takeaway, is for you yourself, especially if you're new, my guys included, you're going, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. You are going to experience heartache from those that are closest to you. And when it happens, especially as a new agent, you will never feel more low. You will never feel more useless and that you want to quit. But I'm telling you right now, it happens all the time. And the best way to handle that type of situation, and I've done it ever since, is when someone does that, I'm like, hey, I completely understand. Let me know if there's any help we can do for y'all in the future. And I appreciate it. I have gained more referrals from that same individual who didn't want to use me for their own personal, but they appreciated the way I handled it. And they went out of their way to find other people. And I personally believe they go out of their way because they feel guilty that they didn't use you and they want to help you. That is the successful way to handle that type of objection. All right, let's do one more and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay. So I saw this one. This is a good one. So the market is so hot. I think I'm going to try to sell the house on my own.
Yeah.
I think that's relevant for today as well.
So this is good too, because this is addressing not only the current market, but the traditional FSBO, for those of you who don't know that, especially realtors, which is embarrassing when you don't know that. That is referring to a for sale by owner. It's amazing how many agents, even some of mine, that sometimes ask me that. That is for sale by owner. You should know that. This is a typical objection that we have, that someone in the general public thinks that they can sell their home. By the way, before he starts going to this objection, those of you who watch those real estate agents and you're dealing with someone like this, this is actually a good segment of the show to send over to them as far as why we think that they should not do something like that. So again, the show is not only for you as a real estate agent, but for the general public as well. All right, Brent, when you're dealing with someone who's a for sale by owner, especially in this market, because they have all the ammunition in the world. In fact, this is a great objection in this market because the fact is that dog outside right now probably could sell a house if it tried.
Yeah.
It could get the sign in.
He doesn't have opposable thumbs though.
No, thumbs, right? Fokker thumbs. So this market, they can pretty much sell it.
Yep.
So any for sale by owner right now is loving life because they're like, oh, I don't need them. If any time in history where an FSBO is like, I don't need them, he's going to give you the objections as to why that's just completely even more ridiculous that you would say that. So what are some?
Right.
There's tons of them we could talk about. What are the most important ones?
Well, I mean, obviously, the more people that see your listing, you're going to get more offers, right? So where's the most exposure? It's going to be on the MLS. And the MLS is only accessible by realtors. 88% of all people that bought a home buy them from a realtor.
All right, so let's stop on that one. First thing the for sale by owner says is, I can get this thing sold quick. I already know someone will buy it.
Yep.
Right? What about the other 100 that want it? That want to pay more for it?
Yep.
That might actually get in a bidding war over it.
Yep.
You think that's the best way to do this? You sure? Yeah, I'm going to sell it for all this price. Congratulations. We had a house right next to you that had 40 offers yesterday. Did you know that? Nope.
Nope.
All right, that's a good one. Keep going with the other ones.
Sellers don't have access to sold prices on the MLS. So how are they going to price their home? Based on this estimate that we saw earlier? Yes.
Or based on what Jones said, or my other neighbor said, Randy.
I wouldn't listen
Tommy.
to Joan.
Yeah. I mean, how do we know? Or worse, and this is a cardinal sin of a for sale by owner. Well, my house is better than that one.
Yep.
Yeah. It's also 2,000 square feet smaller.
Yep.
Which means you are not even in the same, I don't know, what's beyond a galaxy? Infinite space.
Mm-hmm.
You're not even in infinite space to what that house is. So
right.
Congratulations for totally not knowing what you're talking about.
And we're starting to see, I'm not going to say that the brand, but there's people out there where you can pay, I think it's like, well, it's less than $10 a day for the house to be on the MLS, right?
Right.
So this is where I see a lot of issues that our clients have when they're dealing with the for sale by owner, because they do find it on the MLS, but the homeowner has no clue what they're doing. They don't know protocol. They're going to get themselves in trouble by just running their mouths.
And the other person in the environment, they're going to get them in trouble too.
Yep. They don't know how to fill out the paperwork. So then they're assuming then that the buyer's agent is going to help them. And it's a conflict of interest for the buyer's agent to help them because they represent the buyer. And they're also going to price it probably either way too high or they're going to leave money on the table.
So there are a million things that you can tell a for sale by owner of what they could possibly do wrong. They'll probably still in a million ways reject every one of them. But sometimes when I am dealing with an objection on a for sale by owner, I'll just start with one out of those million that cost them money on things they didn't know. So one of the most popular is I'll ask them, hey, are you gonna pay for that title policy? And they'll be like, no, I'm not going to do that at all. And which is traditional 99% of the time seller's going to pay for the title policy. And they're like, well, it's not that big of a deal anyways. I'm like, well, it is. I go, do you know how much the title policy costs? They're like, no. I go, should. I go, because on a $500,000 house like you have, it's about $5,000. I go, so that's $5,000 you don't even know what to do with right now. You don't even have the faintest idea what it is. If that agent put in there in section 12 closing costs, and let's say they gave you a sale price and you're bragging about your sales price, that it's like 10K over, but then they put in section 12, which is closing cost request, they put something like 5,000, and you're like, I'm getting 10,000 over. Wrong. No, you're not. They're asking you to give 10,000 over, but then they're asking you to give 5K of it back. We can go on and on with this. We'll tear the thing apart. The bottom line is they don't know it because they don't deal with it on a day-to-day. And I'm telling you right now, if you're a for sale owner, you'll probably listen to this going, yeah, this guy running his mouth. I'm telling you right now, you're going to mess something up on that contract, and it's going to cost you money. A lot less, or it's going to cost you a lot more
than the 3%
would have cost you.
Yep.
It's a fact. And if you did do it, I'm telling you, you did do it correctly, I'm telling you, it's pure luck. There is no way you can go through this process unless you've done it many times and you know every bit of what that contract says. And outside of an attorney, who even most attorneys don't really understand the contract that well, there are very few people who can do that. You are fooling yourself, and you're making yourself somewhat of a fool when you sell that house, and then worse, you start bragging about it. Because most likely, if we went into that transaction, we're like, you cost yourself $10,000 to $15,000, just like that.
I wonder how many FSBOs get sued versus agent-assisted ones, because
God only knows.
I mean, there's no way for them to even have any clue about fixtures,
disclosures, what they're disclosing, what they should have disclosed. I don't have to tell them that. It's a bad idea.
Yep.
Message of story, moral of story, bad idea. So we'll do this one again because we can always have scripts. Scripts are, always in. I did this actually for our own personal office because they were requesting it, so I wanted to do a favor for them. But as always, there's great content throughout the entire show. So hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope you got a lot of takeaways from today. As always, always tell everybody about our show, especially new agents who are friends of yours, especially those of you who are agents or are just now watching and you're new and you're partnering with other agents and you're grouped together. You should say, hey, look, y'all should watch the show. This was really helpful for me. So I really appreciate that. Let's see. I love how my daughter-in-law thinks she knows all about real estate and tells me. So Laura's telling us that she has an expert in the family, and they're telling her how to do it. So yes, that's exactly what we're referring to when somebody's cautioning us on how to sell a house. We also go through and we have a lot of people that are telling us these expertises and these examples as to we can maximize these things, or they're telling us these details and they don't even have the faintest idea what it is that we're doing. Not even the faintest idea. So it's amazing how many people are experts in real estate. Y'all, thanks again for watching. We'll catch up with y'all next week. As always, we really appreciate it. Y'all take care. See ya.